Hey, Mr. Sassel here. Welcome to Lesson 11, Percent of a Number from the Math Fundamentals for the HSPT workbook. If you want to get the workbook, link is in the description below. A lot of good practice here. So after we cover the lesson, we'll do a lot of practice problems together. This is a really important skill for the HSPT, for the quantitative subtest, and also the mathematics subtest. So really important lesson here. So percent of a number. To find a percent of a number, change the percent to a decimal and multiply. That's all we want to do here. So pretty simple. And here's our note. In math, of always means times. It tells us to multiply. So of is always times. Really important. So example one, we see what is 40% of 50? Well, we just change 40% to a decimal, which is 0.4. See that here? And then zero point 0.4 times 50, which is 20, right? So 40% of 50 is 20. Let's do the practice, then I'll show the math here for this one. So what is 30% of 45? Okay, so 30% is 0.3, right? Just move that decimal over 2 places to the left, drop the percentage sign, then you can drop any extra zeros. You don't have to do 0.30, you can just do 0.3. And then that 45 times 0.3. That's it. Pretty easy, right? So 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13. And then we have one decimal place. I like to count up with my pencil, right? I go, okay, there's one there. And then in my answer from right to left, we go over the same number of places, so 13.5. There are other ways of doing this. Sometimes people learn the fractional way of doing 30% of 45. Sometimes that'll be easier, but you definitely want to have this down because sometimes that's actually harder to do it that way. So let's look at example 2. Here is a word problem. So this is one that you might find on the mathematics subtest. There are 75 workers in a company. 36% of the workers are men and 64% are women. How many women workers are in the company? So they actually give us both, right? They give us the percentage of men, the percentage of women, but we really just need this 64% since that's how many are women. So how do we solve this? Well, we take the 75 workers and we multiply that by 64%, which is 0.64, right? So another way to think about this is 64% of 75, right, is going to be the number of women workers. So 75 times 0.64 is going to be 48. I think I won't show that here. We'll just do the practice 2 right now. Practice 2, this is going to be the same type of problem, right? There are 60 students in the 7th grade class. 15% of them were absent from school on Friday. How many students were absent? Okay, so we get the percentage that were absent. So this is a pretty straightforward one. So let's just change that to a decimal, right? 15%, 0.15, and then there are 60 students. So we multiply 0.15 times 60 or 60 times 0.15. I am going to put the 60 seconds. And we can use the 0 as a placeholder. Whenever you have a single digit or a single number and zeros after it, when you're doing multiplication, you can put that number second and use the zeros just as placeholders. And then you can just multiply out the number and do it all in one line. It just makes things a lot easier. So I put the 0 there as my placeholder and we just multiply out the 6 and then move our decimal. So 6 times 5 is 30, carry the 3. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 3 is 9. Move over our 2 places there. And 9 students were absent. That's 15% of 60, right? Okay, we're going to do a lot more practice here on the next page. Percent of a number, solve all the following problems, show all the work. So it's really important to be able to do this work by hand. You're not allowed to use a calculator in the HSPT, so you have to be good at doing this kind of math by hand. You have to be quick and accurate. So let's go through these. We have a lot of problems to do. What is 15% of 70? Okay, so as always times, we just change 15% to a decimal and multiply. So that's going to be 0.15, right? And then times 70. I'm going to put the 72nd here. Same idea. We just use that 0 as a placeholder and then multiply out the 7 now. So 7 times 5 is 35, carry the 3. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 3 is 10. 2 decimal places. And in our answer from right to left, we go over the same number. So that's 10.50. All right, what is 6% of 87? Okay, so we change 6% to a decimal, which is 0.06. Now, in this case, I'm just going to do 87 times 0.06. I'll put that second. Basically, here we can just multiply out the 6 and then move our decimal over two places. So 6 times 7 is 42. Carry the 4. 6 times 8 is 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. And we're done. Now we can just move our decimal place. Sometimes I see students multiplying out the 0. You don't really need to do that. Just count up your decimals at this point. 1, 2, 1, 2, and we get 5.22. All right, what is 25% of 110? Okay, so 25% is 0.25, and then we'll do 110 times 0.25. I'm just thinking another way we could do this, 25% is 1/4. And again, those are ones that you want to have down, 25%, 1/4, 0.25. These are all the same. So we could just do 110. Let me do it both ways, right? 110 times 1/4, which is 110 divided by 4. All right, let me just show it. If we're doing times 1/4, you can see it's just 110 divided by 4. So 110 divided by 4, let's do that here. 4 goes into 11 two times. 4 times 2 is 8. 11 minus 8 is 3. Bring down the 0. 4 goes into 30. What would that be? 7 times. 4 times 7 is 28. Okay. Now at this point, when you're doing division, if you get to a point like this, you do have to add a decimal here and put it up on the line, and then you can add a 0. So 30 minus 28 is 2. We bring down the 0, and 4 goes into 25 times. So 27.5. And we're going to get the same answer when we do it this way that we've been talking about, right? Just 110 times 0.25. So let's do that right now. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 1 is 5. Okay, now placeholder. Now, I think I mentioned this in a previous video. I like to use X as a placeholder. I encourage you to do that as well, so you don't get confused if there's zeros. Because look at this. We have 2 times 0 is 0 right here. So you don't want to get confused with which one your placeholder is. Okay. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 1 is 2. And let's add these up. 0, 5, 7, 2. And move our decimal over two places, move our decimal over two places, and we see we get 27.5. Again, just drop that last 0 there, 27.5. So, in math, sometimes there's multiple ways to get to the same answer. So usually you want to just use whatever way is fastest for you. It actually seemed in this one that maybe the multiplication of doing 110 times 0.25 was a little bit easier, a little bit faster. So anyways, let's do the next one. Number 4, find 120% of 52. Okay, so this is where it's important, right? We talked about changing a percent to a decimal. For 120%, the decimal is understood at the end of the number. Then we move it over two places to the left. So that's 1.2. Again, you can drop those zeros just to make the multiplication easier. So instead of doing 1.20, we just do 1.2. It's the same number. And now we multiply, right? So 52 times 1.2. Okay, 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 5 is 10. Placeholder, use that X. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 5 is 5. Let's add these up. 4, 2, 6. And we just have one decimal place to go here. So this one is 62.4 for number 4. So not too bad. Okay, now number 5 is a word problem. So you get many word problems on the mathematics subtest, just like this. So there are 45 marbles in a jar. 20% of them are red and 80% are green. How many red marbles in the jar? So a lot of times they do this. They give you multiple percentages, right, of different colors or whatever it is. But we want the red marbles. So we see that in this line here, right? 20% of the marbles are red. So this problem is basically 20% of 45. 45 is the total number of marbles. So 20% as a decimal is 0.2, right? And then times 45. So let's do that right here. 45 times 0.2. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 4 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. And we move our decimal over one place, and that is going to be 9. Yeah. Now again here, just to show you, right? 0.2 or 20% is the same as 1/5. And so you could also do this problem 1/5 times 45. And we can cross cancel here, all right? 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 45 9 times, and 1 times 9 is 9. So again, being able to interchange percents and fractions, you can sometimes save time or do it a little bit differently by using a fraction instead of the decimal, changing the percent to a decimal. You're going to end up with the same answer if you're doing it correctly. But you definitely want to have this method down because you can always default to it if you're kind of confused what you need to do. So number 6, what is 40% of 14? So again, you want a system or a way of doing things is just kind of automatic. You don't really have to think about what you need to do. So that's what we're doing here. So 40% of 40. Okay, how do we do this? We just change 40% to a decimal, 0.4, and then it's times 14. Now here again, I'm going to put 14 on top, times 0.4. 4 times 4 is 16, carry the 1. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 1 decimal place, 1 decimal place, 5.6. So you want things just to be automatic. And that's what the repetition is for, doing these problems until you really have it down, right? So let's do number 7 together here. What is 20% of 5.4? And this is one where changing 20% to 1/5 is not going to work so great. So here, this is an example of just saying, okay, well, 20% of 5.4, we change 20% to a decimal, which is 0.2, and then we do 5.4 times 0.2. And this is really easy, right? 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 5 is 10. How many total decimal places in both numbers being multiplied? 1, 2. From right to left, we go the same number of places, so 1.08. Very easy way to do that problem. All right. Number 8, find 5.5% of 89. I actually previewed this problem in our previous lesson. So 5.5% of 89, we're going to change 5.5% to 5.5%. Now, how did I do that? Well, 1/2 is 0.5, right? Same thing. So we're just changing the fraction percent to a decimal percent. So 5.5% is the same as 5.5%. And now it's easy to change it to a decimal. It's going to be 0.055. So 5.5% is 0.055 as a decimal of his times 89. Yeah, I guess I'll do it this way. I think it'll be fine here. 9 times 5 is 45. Carry the 4. 9 times 5 is 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. Carry the 4. 9 times 0 is 0. And then let's bring down that 4 placeholder. Erase these 4s here. And then we multiply out the 8. So 8 times 5 is 40. Carry the 4. 8 times 5 is 40. Plus 4 is 44. Carry the 4. And 8 times 0 is 0. And bring down that 4. We add them up. 5, 9, 8, 4, and 1, 2, 3 decimal places. 1, 2, 3 decimal places. 4.895. So a little bit tedious there with the multiplication of the decimals. One nice thing about the test is it's multiple choice, right? So what we always suggest is, work the problem out first and then look for your answer. And if we see 4.895 as an answer choice, we're going to feel pretty confident. Yeah, that's probably right. And if you don't see the answer you got, either you take a guess and move on, or you try to redo it quickly. And if you do take a guess and move on, you would come back to it later if you have time just to try it again. All right, number 9, what is 3% of 832? So 3%, change that to decimal, is going to be 0.03. And let's see, I'll set it up like this, 832 times 0.03. And again, we just have to multiply out the 3 and we're done. So 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 8 is 24. And move it over 2 places, 1, 2, 1, 2, 24.96. So not too bad there. All right, number 10, there are 40 students in the geometry class at Mission High School. 45% are boys and 55% are girls. How many girls are in the class? So I always look to say, okay, well, what is the percentage of girls here? It's 55%. So this is 55% of 40, which is the total number of students. Okay, so what do? we just change 55% to a decimal, which is 0.55, and then multiply that by 40. Here again, I'm going to put 42nd. We use our little trick, right? We use the 0 as a placeholder, and then we just multiply out the 4. 4 times 5 is 20, carry the 2. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 22. Count up your decimals. I really encourage you to do that with your pencil, just so you don't make any mistakes. And again, so you do the same thing every time. You want this just to become automatic work. So in our answer from right to left, 1, 2, and we get 22.00. But again, you just drop those. 22.00 is the same as 22. So 22 girls are in the class for that one. All right. I told you we were going to have a lot of practice here. Let's keep going. Next page here. What is 0.05% of 12? Okay, this one seems hard, right? But we just do it the same way. So we need to change 0.05% to a decimal. So we move the decimal over 2 places and we get 0.0005. And then times 12, right? Now, this case, I guess we can do it like this. We can do 12 times 0.005. We just need to multiply out the 5 here. So let me show you what that looks like. 5 times 2 is 10, carry the 1. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. And now we need to move our decimal over 1, 2, 3, 4 places. So we start from here. We start at the very right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 0.0060. And again, we can just 0.006. We can just leave it at that. You can just drop the zeros after the 6. Same thing. Kind of an interesting one though. It can be confusing, but again, if you have the system of how to do these down, hey, we do it the same way, right? Every single time. Okay, what is 2.5% of 800? So 2.5% is the same as 2.5%. So that's our first step. Then we move our decimal 2 places to the left. We drop the percent, so it's 0.025. Okay, and then of is always times. So we have, in this case, I'm going to do 0.025 times 800. I'm going to put the 800 second. Why? Because I can use those zeros as placeholders, and then we can just do the multiplication all in one line. This is a pretty good technique to get down. So we have the single number 8 with 2 zeros after it. So we just do the 2 zeros here. And then we just multiply out the 8. So 8 times 5 is 40, carry the 4. 8 times 2 is 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And now we move over 1, 2, 3. And in our answer, 1, 2, 3. So our answer is 20.000, but again, just the same thing as 20. Okay. Find 42% of 50. So 42%, change the percent to a decimal, multiply. Doing the same thing every time. So 42% is 0.42 times 50. Okay, put the 50 second. Put that 1 0 there as a placeholder, and let's multiply out the 5 and then move the decimal. 5 times 2 is 10, carry the 1. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. 1, 2 places, right to left. 2 places. So 21.00, which is the same as 21. All right, 9% of 80, 9% is going to be 0.09 times 80. Pretty easy one here. Actually, either way you can just do 80 times 0.09. I probably just do it this way in this case, just because you multiply out the 9 and then we're done. So 9 times 0 is 0, 9 times 8 is 72. And move over the decimal 2 places. Again, you don't have to multiply out that 0 there before the 9. We can just, we're done. We move our decimal places 1, 2, and we get 7.2. All right. There are 240 fish in a fish tank. 15% are goldfish, 85% are guppies. How many goldfish? Okay, so 15% are goldfish. 15% of 240. That's kind of what we end up doing in this word problem, right? 15% is 0.15, and now we have 240 times 0.15. We can't really use that trick I was doing earlier because this is 240. So if it was 200, we could do it, but 240, we got to just do this the old-fashioned way here. So let's multiply this out. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 4 is 20, carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. Placeholder, use that x. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, not too bad. 0, 0, 4, 5, 6. 2 and 1 is 3. Last step, move those decimals over. Always do this. Don't forget. And we get 36. So there are 36 goldfish in the tank. All right, 75% of 56. Now again, whenever I see 75%, right, I'm thinking, hey, that's 3/4. That's the same as 3/4. And you want to be able to do that too, because you need to be able to interchange these sometimes to go faster at the math. So 3/4 of 56, we could do it this way. I'll show the other way too, I think, but you know, we can cross cancel here. So 4 goes into 56. Now, one thing with cross canceling, you can always just start with doing half of each one. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 56 divided by 2 is 28. And 2 goes into 28. So we can go do this again, right? We can cancel again. 2 goes into 2 once. 2 goes into 28 14 times. 28 divided by 2 is 14. And then we have 3 times 14. 3 times 4 is 12, carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So we get 42 as our answer. Now, if we were doing this the way we've been doing it for the rest of the worksheet, right, we would say, okay, 75% is 0.75 and times 56. 6 times 5 is 42, right? No, not 42, 30. Geez, okay, this has been a long lesson. 6 times 5 is 30. And carry the 3. 6 times 7 is 42. 43, 44, 45. There we go. Okay. I'm back on track here. Erase that. Erase that 3. And tap it back to my pencil. Doesn't want to work right now. Okay. Multiply out the 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry the 2. 5 times 7 is 35, 36, 37. And let's add these up. 0, 5 and 5 is 10, carry the 1. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, carry the 1. And 3 plus 1 is 4. And we move over 2 places, 42. So we get the same answer. In this case, I think changing 75% to 3/4 and then multiplying that by 56 was probably a little bit easier and kind of the first way I thought of doing that problem, which is okay. We want to understand, you can do these the fastest way possible to get the correct answer. Okay, what is 15% of 420? So 0.15, and then 420 times 0.15. So let's just do a lot of multiplication with decimals, right? That was why that was a very important lesson at the start of this workbook. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 2 is 10, carry the 1. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. Placeholder, 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 4 is 4, and let's add them up. 0, 0, 3, 6. 2 decimal places, 2 decimal places. Looks like we get 63 for that one. All right, a couple more here. What is 12.5% of 432? Oh, these are dirty. These are dirty. All right, let's do it. Move the decimal over 2 places to the left. And we have 432 times 0.125. All right. It's going to be a long one. Let's do it. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 5 times 3 is 15. Plus 1 is 16. Carry the 1. 5 times 4 is 20. Plus 1 is 21. First placeholder. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8. Now we need 2 placeholders here. So we use those 2 x's, and then 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 4 is 4. Okay, not too bad. 0. 6 and 4 is 10. Carry the 1. Then we have 6 plus 2 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. Plus 1 is 10. Carry the 1. 8 and 2 is 10. Plus 3 is 13. Plus 1 is 14. Carry the 1. And 4 plus 1 is 5. Move our decimal over 1, 2, 3 places in our answer. 1, 2, 3 places in our answer, and we get 54. At least we ended with a nice round number there. Okay, what is 90% of 1,870? All right, well, let's do it. Move the decimal 2 places to the left. 90% is 0.9, and we do 1, 8, 0. I'm going to put that on top here. And that way we just multiply out the 9 and move the decimal. 9 times 0 is 0. 9 times 7 is 63. Carry the 6. 9 times 8 is 72. Plus 6 is 78. 9 times 1 is 9. Plus 7 is 16. And then we just have one decimal place to move it here, one decimal place, and we get 1,683. Our last one, we made it. Okay, number 20, a certain factory has 150 workers. If 20% call in sick, how many workers will be at work that day? Okay, we need to be a little careful here, right? It's saying that 20% call in sick, but then it's asking how many workers will be there that day. So if 20% call in sick, right, 100% minus the 20% that call in sick, that means 80% of the workers are going to be at work. So this one is a little bit tricky, a little extra step here to figure out the percent that we need. So 80% of 150 is going to be how many workers were at work that day, 150 total workers. Okay, so 80% is 0.8. And let's do 150 times 0.8. And 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 5 is 40. Carry the 4. 8 times 1 is 8. 9, 10, 11, 12. And we move the decimal over one place and one place in our answer, and we get 120. So 120 workers will be at work on that day. All right. Wow, that was a long one. Great work. Thanks for sticking with me till the end here. The more you work at this stuff, the better you're going to get and the higher your HSPT score is going to be. So great work. I'll see you in the next lesson.